the sort of the big thing I learned, taking film classes even in high school was how powerful it is when you raise the camera to look down on a subject or lower the camera to look up at a subject. How, going back to Citizen Kane, how you can make someone seem, powerful or less powerful, depending on the angle. And it's one of the remarkable things is the way Spike does, uses that to create the impression that Radio Raheem is a mountain, because Bill Nunn is not a big man.
Mm-hmm.
And when people, I think Spike said, when people meet Bill Nunn in person, they're
he's definitely bigger than Spike.
Spike's little. Spike's a half pint, right?
Yes, Dean, Big Brother Almighty.
How tall are you?
5 feet, 5 inches.
Yeah, you're a 5 foot, 5-inch piece of shit.
Right? But Bill Nunn seems like this, like I say, like this mountain. And Radio Raheem is such a great character because he has such so few lines, but his presence is huge.
Love. These 5 fingers, they go straight to the soul of man.
It's like he's got that boom box. And that's something I love too, is just seeing those ghetto blasters, because I remember that from childhood, having those big boom boxes. And like that scene when he has the sort of the dueling boom boxes, the scene with the Hispanic guys, where and finally he turns it up and his is louder. And they're like, "You got it, man, you got it." And you just get the sense that this guy's a legend on these streets, right? And it's not like he's a saint, right? I mean, he's kind of scary sometimes, and he's like very aggressive with the Korean guy when he's getting the battery, D motherfucker, D, count them shits again, and he's
also the funniest scene in the movie, just like hilarious. Yeah. But you're also like, come on, man, calm down, like no need to be rude.
But
all of us, who have had clerk experience, like know what it's like to be on the other side.
He's definitely hard on them.
I remember I really liked Bill Nunn in Regarding Henry. He was the orderly.
All right, you're stepping like a natural man. Go ahead.
Which is funny. I think we've talked about Regarding Henry on this podcast before. He's great in He Got Game as the uncle, that they don't really like.
New Jack City is he's pretty quiet in that, right? As
is he in New Jack? Yeah. Remember?
Wow. Yeah, he is. Yeah, Bill Nunn is. He's almost mute in it.
Wow. It's a movie really with so many standout roles. Some of the people I don't, I wish I knew their name. I don't know their name, but who's the guy who, you remember the scene where one of Martin Lawrence's friend, that guy who in the scene with the mayor, he ripped into him.
Animated. Yeah.
Remember that scene where, every day I see you going up and down this block inebriated.
Yeah.
And you're right. I don't want to know your pain. I don't care to know your pain. You're the one to put yourself in this situation, man. Every day, I see you walk up and down this block inebriated.
I don't know who that guy is, but I just thought he was terrific. And obviously Rosie Perez's first movie. Was Rosie Perez, was she one of the Fly Girls in Living Color?
Yeah, she's from In Living Color, right?
She did that like after Do the Right Thing. Like Spike had discovered her as a dancer in a club. Right. He was doing a promo tour for School Days with the band EU, and she was dancing to The Butt.
The name of the dance is called The Butt. It's called The Butt. Playback!
And he discovered her, and he's like, I gotta put you in my movie.
What an opening scene, though. We didn't, before it opens with that hot summer, you get that phenomenal opening scene with her dancing and the Public Enemy track. And like that, for me, I mean, you see that and you're in for a movie unlike anything you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
What's amazing about that dance too is that it's kind of telling you what the movie is. It's like, because there's something kind of goofy about the dance, like some of her boxing moves and stuff are kind of goofy. But there's also kind of like a defiance in her movements, and an anger, and a kind of a proclamation of something, a kind of a throwing down the gauntlet. It's a fierce kind of performance, and again that Public Enemy track, just pulsating. that must have been the song of the summer in 1989.
89,
Was it nominated for any Oscars?
Do the Right Thing?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, Do the Right Thing, like it was very controversial about what happened at the Academy Awards because Roger Ebert and other, prominent film critics of the time were like, this is the most important movie in years.
Incidentally, I might add as a footnote, this is also my pick as the number one. I knew it would be. Number one film of the year. Had to be.
And no Best Picture nomination, just the Best Supporting Actor for Danny Aiello and Spike Lee for screenplay, and that's it.
But there is one film missing from this list that deserves to be on it because, ironically, it might tell the biggest truth of all, and that's Do the Right Thing.
The movie that won that year, funnily enough, Driving Miss Daisy, which who knows about the quality of Driving Miss Daisy now? That's a movie that's, kind of faded into the cultural memory, but certainly not a relevant contemporary portrayal of race and race relations in 1989. So it really brought into huge relief how the Oscars are completely out of touch with everything when they can't recognize, a contemporary classic when they see one.
I think Do the Right Thing presented America with a look at race. It wasn't ready to deal with it in the way Spike was forcing
100%.
you to look at it. And so it's much easier for America to think about race in the terms of Driving Miss Daisy than it was
to make them feel good.
Even for people who are open-minded, there are lots of things about Do the Right Thing that challenge you. They challenge your own sense of racism. You look at the journey Sal takes, and you have to confront that there might be a little bit of Sal in all of us, right? That you can be a good man, but can also be driven to do things that don't speak to the best of who you are.
Sal is, and it's instructive because we see Sal as this sort of benevolent figure, and he portrays himself as a benevolent figure. This neighborhood has grown up on my food, but when Sal goes over the edge or gets pushed over the edge, however you want to put it, out of his mouth comes the most horrible slur you can imagine.
Yeah,
and is that the true Sal?
You see that he's sweet on Joy Lee, right?
We were wondering when you're going to stop by and pay us a visit.
How's my brother doing?
So it's so you kind of go, well, okay, here's a guy who's not bigoted. He's not like his son, But then you're right. When he's pushed, this bigotry comes out, this hatred, and I feel like, a lot of what the movie's saying is kind of this fear of each other, this fear of the other, this kind of this tribalism, that it's kind of this when they go after the Korean guy at the end, for example, right? It's like who else is not one of us, him, right? And that's something that it's not like that is exclusive to Bed-Stuy, right? I mean, that is that's the human condition for people to say, you're not like me, and the key line obviously is from the Korean grocer is, I'm you, I'm black, I'm the same, we're the same, I'm like you. And it's you need that recognition of sameness. We're the same, we I am you and you are me, and that stops the violence, right? And he holds out his hand to shake, I forget which guy, Sweet Dick Willie's friend, I think, that giving him shit. He doesn't shake his hand. But at least, the violence stops at Sal's, One of the things that shocked me this time was, I didn't remember this, but when Sal's is burning down, Mother's sister yells, burn it down, burn it down. And I'm like, she's the voice of reason for so much of this movie. It's it's really shocking when she loses. That was one of the most disturbing parts. And not because she's wrong or anything like that, but because you sort of expect her to be the most compassionate character. And then she becomes one of the angry voices of the mob. It's grab your pitchfork. It's really surprising. But I think, you said wake up. It's like that is like almost like Spike's I'll be back, because obviously the big sequence in School Days is, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Yeah.
And I think
the last words in
line
School Days and the first words in this movie.
That's cool. I assume that's intentional. I mean, it's like, but it's so great. And it's something that Spike can do that I don't think I would tolerate from anyone else. It's kind of like when we get to Jungle Fever, the ending of Jungle Fever, when Wesley Snipes grabs that young girl and screams, no, out to the heavens, and the camera, comes soaring in. Somehow Spike can do these things that no one else can do. He just creates this environment where things can be rooted in reality, because you wouldn't say that Do the Right Thing is a fantasy at all. I mean, or a satire even. It's like gritty, almost neorealism, but then it's presented in this way with this kind of, these like I say, these expressionistic angles and whatnot. And the colors, it's like, I think Spike on the supplementary materials for the Do the Right Thing Criterion, Spike's talked about how that red wall that Sweet Dick Willie and the boys are in front of, it's like, it's an unrealistically red wall, but it's just, it's the heat, right? It's like that everywhere you look, the red is just, kind of like a harbinger of doom, but Robin Harris, right, as Sweet Dick Willie. I knew Robin Harris, of course, at that time as Pops from House Party, and then later would come Bebe's Kids. Robin Harris, man, he's also in Mo Better Blues. He's the MC at the club, but there's a guy whose career was cut way too short.
Hey, bitch, I'm going to the moon. I'll be back in a couple of days. Well, you be careful.
Well, just to go back a bit to talk about, the way that the neighborhood is portrayed, and I think it's fascinating because in a lot of ways, what Spike is setting out here to do is to portray where he grew up. And for Spike, I mean, he grew up in Brooklyn and Atlanta, but this is like this is his home, this is his neighborhood, and this Spike is sort of like, because this is such a part of the Spike story, of the beginning of Spike, the Spike, what makes Spike is he'll look at it in an idealized way, and it is meant to be portraying this neighborhood in a way that's never been seen before, in the same way that the Italian neorealists portrayed bombed out Rome in Rome Open City, or like the struggle just to make a day's wage in The Bicycle Thief. That Spike is he wants to portray his neighborhood in that way, in that, like to say like, this is something we haven't seen portrayed properly on film before, but it is also idealized in a lot of ways. Like there's one piece of graffiti, and it's it's graffiti that's put there purposefully, but like the red wall, that's done in a very specific way. It's done to suggest how hot it is outside, but also to just have this canvas in which you can see these three figures before it. And so it's like Spike has talked about how, and we've mentioned this on the podcast before, about portrayals of young black men at this time in Hollywood. It's basically like, criminals, you got more bread, or thieves, or junkies, or that sort of thing. And you just see it time and time again. To get a positive portrayal of a young black man in Hollywood in the 1980s just doesn't exist. Spike Lee basically had to invent it, which is, like completely astounding, but it's like he's not wrong. So like if you sort of look at the neighborhood today, it's interesting. I sort of looked at contemporary photos of where this takes place in Stuyvesant Boulevard, and the street that's been renamed where it was shot as Do the Right Thing Way. It's kind of the neighborhood, the Bedford Stuyvesant neighborhood that you see in Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop. You see abandoned homes, and a lot of that stuff is still there. So he's trying to portray it in a very realistic way, but working with like his production design people and just like to try and conceive of it in an idealized way, in a way, because he's saying we need this movie is so complex, but he's definitely saying like we need positive portrayals here. We need to make this neighborhood look like a place to live, a place like people live here for a reason. There are struggles, it's difficult, and it ends in tragedy, but people live here for a reason because we have this community, and that's another interesting aspect of what Spike is doing here.
For the tragedy of what happens, for it all to burn down, kind of, you have to invest in it first. It's like the loss only works if the loss was profound, and for the loss to be profound, it has to be something that you don't want to lose. Something worth keeping.
Yeah.
This community.
Exactly.
And that what you were talking about, Bjorn, it kind of reminds me of that opening line from Great Expectations. I'm not going to tell the story the way that it happened. I'm going to tell it the way I remember it. So it's kind of like, when you think back on your childhood, it's like, you might remember those guys hanging out in the corner in front of that wall, and it's like that wall was just regular brick, but the way you remember it was that it was like blazing red, fire engine red.
Exactly.
And it has that quality of like the embellishment of memory. So even though things like the canted angles and the things like that, it's like it's an exaggeration, but it never strays into parody or farce. It's always grounded in reality. I mean, you look at Sal's and it's like, we've all been in that place, it's like, it's, I'm sure it's not as nice as Primo, but I mean, it's like, we've been in that pizzeria, it feels real. I mean, it feels like you can go in there and get some mozzarella, on your slice. The scene with, the how come there's no brothers up on the wall scene, the close-ups, you see Sinatra, you see Pacino, you see Sophia Loren, you see these people. And then at the end, the
Liza Minnelli, which is very funny.
And then you see the flames, kind of engulfing those portraits later. Was it Frank Sinatra who got like really pissed off when he saw like that they were burning his picture? I feel like some people got upset.
Well, yeah, Spike talked a little bit about how he wanted to use a Frank Sinatra song in, I forget which movie, but it's later on, and yeah, I think that's what it is, and had to smooth it over because Frank's picture got burned, but even Frank Sinatra realized that like what's being portrayed is true. Like this isn't made up. This is real.
What's interesting too about this whole thing is like, and it goes back to that that thing that David Mamet talks about where you want to have conflict in your scene, and you want to have two characters with opposing arguments where both of their arguments are valid, right? I mean, that's drama and conflict. If it's like, the Driving Miss Daisy thing where it's just like, racism is bad, and it's like, it's teaching you a lesson. Well, Do the Right Thing isn't trying to be instructive, right? Like it's just asking questions, and it wants you to come up with the answer yourself. It's so engaging. And I think it's kind of like why when you come out of the movie, I mean, you argue, right? Like what did this mean? What did that mean? But it's like that business with the, burning Sinatra's picture and stuff. I never feel like Spike Lee is saying fuck Frank Sinatra. You know what I mean?
No,
even if Mookie says fuck Frank Sinatra.
And fuck Frank Sinatra.
There's never a moment in the movie where I feel like, he is, where it's like, it's Spike up on a soapbox, or like some message is being delivered, or where even like, like, it's not like it's saying fuck the Italians or, or fuck black people or fuck, like it's never making an argument that somebody is better than somebody else. Everyone is flawed. Everyone has these flaws. DeMare, right? Like here's a guy who's kind of, you want to talk about benevolence, right? I mean, like runs out to save that boy from getting hit by a car. He's trying to calm people down. He's kind of like, he's the soul of the neighborhood, but he's a drunk, who walked, what did he say? Watching your kids starve while you're drinking.
Unless you done stood in the door, listen to your 5 hungry children crying for bread. And you can't do a damn thing about it. Your woman standing there. You can't even look her in the eye. Unless you done that, you don't know me, my pain, my hurt, my feelings. You don't know shit.
All the reasons that one character gives him shit, that guy is right. You even see that play out on Demaire's face. You know, he knows he's right. You know, and Demaire's not above yelling at the Korean grocer either, right? About, you know, where's my Miller High Life?
Yeah. Where's the Miller High Life? Where is the Miller High Life?
No more High Life. You look what we happen to buy.
No more High Life? What kind of a joint is this? How come no more High Life? Look, doctor, this ain't Korea or China or wherever you come from. You get some Miller High Life in this funky joint.
You're asking a lot to ask a man to change his beer, you know? So many memorable lines, right? One thing I think is really interesting, and not to jump ahead to the ending, but it informs sort of the whole approach to the movie, is that, you know, the ending of the movie, you get the quote from Martin Luther King, and then you sort of feel like, oh, okay, so that's what Spike thinks, right? He's with Dr. King here. We all got to stick together, kind of thing. And then just as soon as you've digested that quote, you know, up pops Malcolm's quote, you know, which is kind of like the by any means necessary ethos, right? And you're like, okay, so is that what Spike's saying? You know, it's like gave you both quotes, and you got to walk out and go, where do you fall on that
spectrum? You got to figure it out.
Yeah, right. And it's like, and you argue. I mean, I wonder with your kids, like, did you talk about whether Mookie did the right thing?
Sure. I think the truth is, just to go back just a little before that, I think both Spike the director and Mookie the character, in my opinion, are actually really compassionate both to all sides of the argument. You know, like if you think about the way Mookie moves through the film, he gives everybody like enough width, enough room. You know, he has compassion for Sal's place in the fact that if he wants to have Italians on the wall, that's really his business.
Man, ask Sal, right?
Doesn't necessarily say that, but I think he approaches it with a kind of, you know, what am I going to do kind of thing. But he also sees bugging out's point, you know, and so I feel like as a character, Mookie is really good at giving everybody enough room, and I think definitely Spike as a director does that as well. And I think going back to your earlier point, I think that's probably one of the things that did rub some people up the wrong way, because I think they're used to having these things spelled out. They want to be told, what should I think or feel about all of this information? And Spike doesn't give you that. And I know even on a personal level, like I was confused early on. Like the first few times I watched those, like, what are you saying? I felt the same way about Jungle Fever. Like, what are you saying here then?
Yeah.
You know, and it only comes with either maturity or rewatching that you start to realize that's for you to figure out. And so in terms of whether Mookie did the right thing, you know, when I watched it with the boys, obviously they're young, and so some of this stuff is hard to process as well. But we discussed Mookie, the pivotal scene, which I guess is Mookie throwing the trash can through the window,
smashing Sal's glass window.
That's right. And I don't know. My feeling is that even that you could understand how Mookie could get to that point. That Sal put him in a position where he had to choose between a man I think he respected, but he was having to choose between that and quote unquote his people, his culture, his neighborhood, and those shared struggles. And so Mookie finds himself, I think, in a really difficult situation. And I think, you know, I was talking to my eldest about it, and he thought it was a bad thing to do. He thought he shouldn't have thrown this trash can through the window, and it resulted in Sal essentially losing a business he'd worked really hard to build. But similar to, you know, you think about whether it's the Me Too movement or the Black Lives Matter movement, and this this kind of righting of historical wrongs that I guess some of those movements try to tackle. Even though it's not fair, what happens to Sal, you know, it's one unfair thing in a long list of unfair things. And so if you have the ability to have a really kind of objective view on it, I think you can place that in the kind of context where you know, while you're on a personal level compassionate about Sal's situation, like in a cultural or historical context, you know, you can chalk it up to an evening of or settling of scores.
I think that, you know, the way that you put it as saying that Spike doesn't give it to you, that's you know, it really encapsulates it perfectly. And it's also really, you know, specifically relevant to Spike as a filmmaker, because in the future we'll see he does give it to you. Spike tells you exactly what he's thinking. He tells you exactly what he wants you to get from the film, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But in this movie, you know, there's so many ways to interpret what happens. Does Mookie throw the trash can through Sal's window because he wants to diffuse what's happening in the street and like stop his neighbors from fighting each other, or dangerous, like perhaps getting shot by the police, perhaps, you know, somebody else gets put into a chokehold? Is he trying to diffuse it? Is Mookie saying, finally I get a chance to take revenge at my boss who I hate, and I take this opportunity to like take what is inside of me and just throw this trash can through this window and say fuck you to my boss for once? Is Mookie that angry? Did he finally hear Sal become what he always thought Sal was deep down inside? What Pino actually is, a man who will say slurs to Mookie's face, whereas Sal wouldn't. And then when Sal finally does Mookie say, "Oh well, Sal is an asshole. I'm going to destroy Sal. I'm going to destroy everything," or any number of possibilities that you know. It's interesting that the title of this film is Do the Right Thing, because it sort of opens up that question, but it's basically like, I don't think it's meant to be applied to anything that happens in this film. It's just this phrase that I think Spike wants us to, he picked it out of you know, what is meant to be like one of the more flawed characters in the film, DeMare.
Doctor?
Come on, what?
Always do the right thing.
But one of the wisest characters in the film, to say like, this is the wisest person here, they're saying this, we should listen to it.
That's it?
That's it.
I got it. I'm gone.
But it doesn't necessarily apply to the actions in the film. It's like Spike, again, he's doing this meta thing where he's like, think about your real life and how it relates to what's happening on screen, and think about, you know, where you go. What is your next step after you see this? He's telling a story about, you know, things that affected him and things that he wants to explore, and about, you know, just cultural things and social political things. But I think he's saying with the title of the film, like, forget about if Mookie did the right thing. Think about this every single time in your life, and is it possible? And can you do this? It does sound a little didactic, and again, I think because this is such a complex film that goes in so many directions, thank God that's the only thing that he's saying. If it was the only thing that he was saying, we wouldn't be talking about this movie. No. But it's just like this extra meta layer to what Spike is doing that I think, you know, makes this film, like, you know, emotionally, this is like, I had never cried watching Do the Right Thing before, but I cried this time because of just like how, you know, how it just ramps up at everything that happens in at the end of the film, and how tragic it is. And when I was 13 years old, I didn't know about police violence. I didn't know about racial violence from police. I didn't know anything about that. Again, like where I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, it's an extremely white non-cosmopolitan city, and I didn't know anything about that. And now here I am in my life and hearing these horrifying stories of so much police violence directed specifically at Black people, and feeling that being played out and seeing it being played out. I just broke down, and it was it was such a intense moment, and really it really made me feel like this is how these people in this community feel seeing this happen to this community, and yeah, it really worked for me this time around.
It shakes you up. I think if you don't get shaken up by the end to do the right thing, there's something wrong with you. And when you see Radio Raheem drop, I mean, that's the other thing too, right? It's like he's so powerful. It makes me think of the Never Ending Story, the rock creature, who's like these hands, that were once so strong, and he's now this crumbling rock. It's like because Radio Raheem.
This is the first time anybody has ever compared the Never Ending Story to Do the Right Thing.
But that's impossible.
Well done.
But he was so powerful, and then you see him drop, all the life taken out of him, and it's
not just the drop. It's that scene where the police officer, he's raised off the ground.
Yeah,
he's like 6 feet. So he's like 6 inches off the ground. His feet are dangling, and because
that
like
shot,
because every time we've seen Radio Raheem, he seems like as tall as a building.
Yeah.
Even that, like in my brain, I was like, my God, like how did they do that? Like who's picking him up? And then he hits the ground, like a sack of rocks. And you get, when I rewatched it, you get George Floyd for chills because of obvious reasons.
Well, one of the things I think that is so profound about the movie is, when I was watching it, I was thinking it would have been a bold choice, but a wrong choice. But I could see a lot of directors doing it, which would be to end the movie when Smiley puts the picture of Malcolm and Martin on the wall. It has the feeling of a last shot. He's looking into the camera, and the whole thing was about, when are we going to see some brothers up on this wall? The picture goes up and you feel like, okay, that could be a final statement. It's like, look what it takes, like all this. And you could have ended the movie there. Still would have been a great film. But the profound thing, the thing that I think shows that Spike is not just a good artist and a provocative artist, but a great one, is that it's one thing to build to that climax. It's one thing to get everybody into the shit and then abandon them there. You know what I mean? But to follow it up, the epilogue with the day after.
Agreed.
That is what shows that I think at this point Spike is a master already, because it's like that last scene between Mookie and Sal is so powerful because it's confrontation, it's the aftermath, the place is destroyed, but it's like the sun is going to come up tomorrow. We're going to have to deal with each other now in the aftermath of this thing. Yeah. And, they yell at each other. There's blaming, there's, all this stuff. And then there's that incredible line, where Sal says, so like, how are you?
I don't believe this shit.
Believe it.
Are you sick?
I'm high as a motherfucker. I'm all right, though.
Well, they say it's even going to get hotter today. What are you going to do with yourself?
Make that money, get paid. So I got to go see my son, if it's all right with you.
They're still going to be okay. They're going to be okay. And if they're going to be okay, everyone's going to be okay. And then one of the remarkable things that happens is in Red Hook Summer, Spike shows up as Mookie. He's wearing his Sal shirt. So, I mean, that kind of says that, like, not only did everything work out, but, Mookie ends up spending his life with Sal.
I've been delivering pieces of Sal for over 20 years.
It's that next day, though. It's one of the things that I think as a culture, we're really afraid of, which is dealing with what comes next, right? Like we talk about, in the internet age, the age of public humiliation and shame, it's like, or you know, you talk about Me Too or whatever else. You know, we get to the point where we can confront each other, you know, and that's what the riot scene is. You know, it's just confronting. You know, we can all say, here's why I hate you. You know, the best scene ever. I mean, you see the prototype of it here in Do the Right Thing, but the greatest iteration of it is the fuck you scene montage in you know, 25th Hour. But it's like, it's not that hard to be angry. Anger is easy, not hard. But what is really hard is reconciliation, forgiveness. You know, what comes next. You know, as a culture, we're pretty big on shame and blame, punishment, judgment. We're not so good at forgiveness, reconciliation. You know, the idea of you know, like that we can heal and we can be better. You know what I mean? All these things. But the end of Do the Right Thing suggests that after the storm, you know, there's the sun, right? And it's like, yeah, the street's destroyed, but someone's gonna come along. You know, Sal's gonna have to do it himself, but we're gonna sweep up. You know, I mean, it's funny how the first thing is like sweep the stoop, sweep the stoop.
Pino, get a broom and sweep up front.
You know, we're gonna have to the streets are gonna have to be swept. You know, the glass is gonna have to be repaired. You know, people are gonna have to, you know, pass each other on the street again. And you know, I mean, like I said, Red Hook Summer posits that Sal never left the neighborhood, so they rebuilt it. You know, and people are gonna get on with them. And one of the things I love is like at the end, you know, he wakes up for the day after, and it's like first thing his senior love daddy saying, the forecast today is it's hot. You know, it's gonna be hot again. It was hot yesterday. Hot today, and we're not getting away from the heat. We're gonna have to deal with it.